Okay, cool. So in the yesterday's session, we discussed about lists and tables. Okay. So in today's session, we'll be discussing about the form type. So as we already discussed, what is the purpose of the forms? To collect the data. So the whatever the use it may be, to collect the data from a particular user or from anything, we use the form as a medium, right? So to create a form in HTML, as I already said, there will be two methods. What are the methods? When we create a form to handle with the data, what type of methods that we have? I asked about methods. Getter, post methods. What this will do? This what deals with the what type of form it will mention, whether you are sending a data, receiving and sending data, both are happening. What type of action that you are doing that can be handled by this form method attribute. Okay, so let us create a form. Okay. Cool. So what I'll do, let me get back. So form type, right? So with which tag form tag will be started? Form is the parent tag for the form. Okay. So if you see, as soon as a given form tag, there is an attribute got popped up. So what is the attribute? Action. So what is this action? So for example, each and every form have their individual duty. For example, if you go with a registration form, what is its duty? It have to collect the whole data and it need to create an account, right? If you go with the login form, what is its duty? It need to make the user to check whether the credentials are properly given or not. It need to check. If the credentials are wrong, it need to showcase the error message. If the credentials are right, what it should do? It should automatically have to make the user to log into the particular web page, right? So here, whatever the action that I need to do as soon as my form is got submitted, so that action URL can be declared in this action attribute. Simply to say what I need to, when I fill my form and when I click on submit, where I need to send the data or what I need to do, that can be handled by this action. Okay, so action is not about what is the function that you are going to write in your local. So action deals with where you want to send the data. That is what my action will do usually. Okay, so coming to the next one, already we discussed what is the next attribute. Method, right? So method is the CFUC get, post or dialect. So method or as we already discussed, post what post will do and what get will do in the explanation, right? So now if you see whichever the form you create, definitely it should include with these two attributes. One is action and one is with the method. But you can avoid this method and action if it is a static form. Okay, so we'll be going to use this only if my form is a dynamic form. So if it is just a static form that I was using just to collect the data, and if I'm using any function, other functionalities to send this data to some other place, in such cases, I can avoid this action and method. Instead of this, on submit button only, I can write on click functionalities. Okay, on click or on submit, these type of functionalities, JavaScript functions, I can add. Okay, but if I'm dealing with the frameworks, they definitely will go with the method or action. Methods will avoid. Why? Because when you go with the frameworks, the whole methods can be dealt with separately in the services part, right? So that's how my action and method works. Action will deal with where I need to send my data once the form is get submitted, and method will tell that what is the particular type of this form submission, whether get method or post method. Got it? So if you see here, what are the building blocks of HTML? Tags and attributes. So tags and attributes are the building blocks of HTML. So in the same way here, forms also have backbone. So what is that backbone? input. So input is the tool. So input is the backbone for my form. Simply to say, it is the building block of a form. Why? Because, for example, just imagine I given you a form to submit, login form. I given the label username and email, and also given label username and password. But I didn't given a place where you should type it. So is it possible for you to log in? No, right? So once when I have a when if I want to give any data, what is the main thing that I need? I need an input box to fill the data, right? Whether it's a number or numeric, alpha symbols or alphabets, anything it may be. But I need to give a input box for the user to fill. Once the user got filled, then I can check whether it is a proper data or not, right? Even to check whether the data is proper or not, what I need an input field. So that's why for any form, the input field is the building block of a form, HTML5 forms. Got it? So now if you see, for example, input tag is a self-closing tag. If you see, so it can be given without slash or with slash. As per W3 standards now, it requires slash, but it will not throw any error even if you didn't give slash also. Got it? So input is a self-enclosed tags, we call them. If you see here, now if you go to the browser and if I reload, yeah, just give me a minute. Hey guys, is my voice is audible? Online people.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, cool. Is my screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
so where we are okay with the forms. So if you see here, I got an input field here. Okay. So let me do one thing. Let me make some styles here. Okay, cool. So now we got our data more properly, right? So if you see here, I got an input field. So in this input field, I can type the numbers, sorry, alphabets. I can type the numbers. Also, I can type the symbols. So anything it can accept. Okay. But if you see, excuse me. Sorry. Okay, if you see here, I can type anything. But if you take a particular form, few forms will not allow you to type the numbers or symbols. So if you go with a when you are filling a number field, like if you got a field like enter your mobile number, you'll not get the option of filling alphabets. Why? It will accept only the numerics, right? So how we can do that? So that is where here, however, the for any input, sorry, for any form, the input field is a building block, right? At the same way, for any input field, the attribute type is the backbone. So without the type, the input will be useless, simply to say. Why? Because we should mention what type of input that we want to use it. So if you see here, I was able to give any symbol or any number or any alphabet because I given type as text here. So I told you to check with the different input types, right? So how many of you noted down all the input types? So can you list down what are the input types that you have noted down? Okay. Then, then, okay. Then, pardon? Okay. Then, okay. Then, So totally how many inputs you got? 20? Everyone. Second, let me know quickly. How many you got? Pardon? We didn't care. Recording is not there in YouTube. No access. We didn't enroll here. That's the problem. 20? You, madam? 21. What? Which you missed? One attribute. One is missed. No. 18. Where is the remaining 4? Okay, cool. So totally we have more than 22 plus. Okay. 1 or 2 up and down. Okay. So in this, first one is the text input type. So for example, now you have seen how the text input field will work. So it will accept any type of data that you give. So whichever the characters that you have, you can give any characters into the input type field type of text. So whenever you want to make the user to give any content into the input field, in such cases, you can use the input type as text. Got it? So for example, apart from in type, we can give many other fields. For example, just imagine I have this input field. So is the user will be able to know for which purpose this input is given. I can give number, name, anything, but user don't know what is the major purpose that this input is given for, right? So for that only, what we need to do here? We should give some name to it. So we can give by using a attribute called as placeholder. So I can give like username. For example, just imagine username I given. So if you see here, I got a placeholder keyword. So how placeholder will work? Until unless my input field is empty, I'll showcase my placeholder. But once I type something, what happens? It will be automatically gets hidden. Got it? That's how my input field placeholder will work. So this is one way of giving, making the user know what is that input field particularly given for. Got it? So for example, there is another way that I can use, that is what nothing but label. Okay. So if you see, as soon as I take a label, it is given an attribute called for. So it means that it is asking for which input that particularly you was creating in this in label form. It is not going to add any future to us, but it will be very particular, easy for the browser to understand for which element this one is given for. So for that mentioning, I need to use a one more attribute here called as name. Okay, so I'll give name as username if I give. So for this username only, I was created my input field label, right? So for will be, what will be the name value we should give here. So please enter username. Okay, please enter your username. So if I go back to the browser and if I reload, so if you see, I got my input and label in a single line. So now tell me why I am getting both of them in a single line. Because both are inline elements. So that's the reason I was getting both in a single line. Got it? So now what I need to do, I just want to break this into down. Okay, I don't want this to be in a single line. So what I can do, I can just use a BR, but it is not recommendable to use BRs in your web application more times. Okay, so try to avoid BRs as much as possible. Try to deal with the display properties like block or converting it inline block or something. So don't use the BRs more. Okay, so now we have created one field. So please let us remove this. Enter username. Okay, so let us create one more input field. So now Let me duplicate this instead of creating. So, for example, I was created for username. Next, I'll give for email. Okay, enter email. So, if it is an email input, type should be definitely automatically it will be email, right? So name will be email. So placeholder email. Yes. So now if you go to the browser and if I reload, yeah, what happened? Okay. So I got a field like enter email. So quickly let me give one more input field here. Input type of submit. So let me give value as submit. So what is the attribute value is doing here? So it's just giving a name to my input type submit. Okay. So if you see here, I got input field here or not? So let me make it more clear. Okay. So I got one. Let me do one thing. Let me segregate here one by one. I don't want to use breaks. So what I'll do, I'll make each form input into one div. So which is a block level element. Okay. Div. And also I'll use here lab block, and I was making adding bottom, adding off, and create. I want it for input also. So let me add input. So don't worry about the rules that I was giving. Margin I given, let me give 10 px. Yeah. So now if you see, one I have given for username, one I given for email. So now if I try to submit it, what's happening here? My form got automatically getting submitted. How you can know? If you just compare the URL. So previously it will be tags.html, right? So just if you check the URL, as soon as when I submit, so what happening? I was getting username and again user mail. Something you're getting. You made some mistake with the names here. Yeah, we made mistake here. Email. Yeah. So if I again submit my form, if you see username is empty and email also getting empty. So why it was directly getting it here? Because as already mentioned, what my action will do, it will tell where I need to send my data. as I didn't mention any place here. So I was not mentioning any destination also here. So that's the reason what happening here. My data is all automatically getting into my URL there. Okay. So now, for example, when I submit my form without any data, it is getting submitted, right? But if I just give some data, what's happening? So if I let me give some data, okay, and when I submit, what happening? Still it's getting submitted along with the data that I given, right? But if you come with the other input type email, see when I click on input, automatically it is giving me the suggestion because it is already checking the cache that I stored in my browser for the whatever the emails that I already used. Okay. So now let me give something. And when I try to submit, what happening? It is creating a error message. What is that message? Simply to say pop-up. It is not letting me to submit my form, telling please include an @ in the email address. Some whatever the content you given is missing an @. Why it was mentioning? Because whatever the mail it may be, whether it's a Hotmail, Gmail, or Outlook mail, or business mail, anything it may be, what is the mandatory keyword in mails? @. So who is checking here that condition? HTML is by default checking that condition in the input field. Why? Because you given type as a input, sorry, email, right? So in the input type email as you given, so it is automatically check whether what is the content, whether the user given content is a proper email or not. So these are called as the HTML5 default validations, we call them as. Are we writing validations anywhere here? No. So these are default getting checked by my, which one? Email HTML. Okay, HTML is checking these errors. So now if you see, when I give @ and submit, still it was telling please enter a part following @ is incomplete. Why? Because you know. So any mail, however @ is important, after @ minimum 2 characters are important, like dot in, like a @ or something should be important. So even after this also, like dot in, .com are important, but HTML will be checking until it's a basic validation. So we can't accept the complete things from our basic validations. If you want such thing, then definitely we should write by ourselves. Got it? So now if you see, this is the first step of basic validations that my HTML will be giving based on my type, which type you are giving. Okay. So now if you go with the one more input, let me go with PSD. Nothing but, what is the PSD? Password shortcut, right? So that also I should ask you. Okay. Password. Okay. Now if I go here, so if you see, now whatever the data I was giving, is it visible? So this is also one of the HTML5 default validation, what it was doing. So however, password should be always should be in the hidden format, right? So that's why by default HTML what it was doing, if a user is given type as a password, automatically it will just hide my password. So I was able to type my content, but I will not able to see whatever the data is given because for user security purposes. Got it? So now if you try to submit, my form is getting submitted. So the basic thing that you need to check is, so you need to remember the HTML5 validations will work only when you include any content in the input field. So if my input field is empty, it will not check for the validation. Default validations will not work by default. At least you should include at least one character within the input field. Like, for example, if I give one character here, see, at least I given one character. Now, if you see, it was asking for the validation. So that's how my HTML5 validations will work. These will not work by default. So definitely you should have to include at least one character into my input field. Got it? So if you see here, for example, so these are some of the input types that we have checked so far. But so this is the one of the type of validation that's seen. For example, just imagine I want to make the user to fill the fields mandatory. So I should not allow the user to go for submit button without filling the form. So in such cases, I can't, with this default validations, I can't do anything. Why? Because the user can click on the submit without entering the fields. I can check for validations only if the field has some input data, right? So if you want to avoid such things, and if you want to make the input by default mandatory field, that's where you'll get an attribute called required. So required is one of the attribute that you will get for input fields. So if you see, I given required for, let me give for only text field. Okay. So now if you see, if I reload, when I try to submit, what it is telling, please fill in this field. This is the text field, right? Input type text. It don't have any default validations, but now it got one validation. It will not allow the user to submit the form until unless he gives some value into that input field. For example, now if I give some content and if I submit it, what happening here? Automatically it's getting submitted, right? So that's how my required attribute will be working. So when you go with the validations, there will be three types of validations. Okay, one are the default HTML5 validations. Second one is the front end validations and the server side validations. Okay, what is meant by front end is also called as a client side validations. We call them as. Okay, so what is the difference between client side validations and the server side validations? So just imagine. So as we have already checked, let me go to your website, amazon.in. Okay. So I want to purchase this mobile. If you just imagine. So what is the price here? It is around 10,999. So in the client side, for example, just imagine if this price is given from the client side in the sense front end code, any user can directly go here, edit it, and I can make it to 0. Okay. So now what happened? What is the price there? And I can purchase it. But what is the, this is the disadvantage if we are getting this price from the client side. But when I try to, let me open it and try to buy it. Now if you see, what is the price here again? 10,999, right? So if I let me edit it and make it rupees 1 again. Now let me try to buy now. So what happened? It is asking for credentials. So whenever you click on submit or anything, what happening? Every time the call is getting, API call is getting handled to the backend. That means that's what post call or get call. Okay. Again, you have different HTTP methods like get, post, delete, update, this type of calls you have. So each and on every click, it will hit an API to the backend. It will ask some user is clicking here. So it will check both client side and the server side. So as soon as when he click on the link, it will directly go to the backend. So their backend will check what is the exact price for that item. So automatically it will check the take the response and immediately get back to the send it to the front end. So here within the fraction of seconds, the post call is also happening and also get call is also happening. I'm sending the response to the backend and backend is receiving it and updating it and again giving me the response back to the front end client side. Got it? So in the same way here, for example, now my required field is mandatory here. So if I'm, as I written this in the client side, what I can do, I can directly go here and I can delete it, right? Is it possible or not? Now if I submit without data also, my form is getting submitted. Just imagine if this validation is done from the server side, what happens? As soon as when I try to click on submit, it will send a response to the backend, right? From there, what happens? It will tell it is a required field. You should not allow to submit without filling this field. So that is the advantage and the major reasons why we always have to go with the server side validations more than the client side validations. Client side we can give the validation, but it is just a one level of security. But it is not recommendable to give the client side validations all the time. So even if you write by using JavaScript or any framework, it can be compromised because client side whole code can be accessed here. If you go to the sources, if you see I have the whole folder, I can get access on the desktop, whichever are there. Got it? So that's why you should avoid this. See, I can see the whole code here. So you should avoid the client side validation. That is the major reason why always server side validations are more secure. Got it? So these are some of the field types that we have seen so far. So now let's go with the other input types. Where is it? So let me go with some radio types. Okay. So input, let me give for ports. So input type as radio, name as sports, and radio buttons will not have any placeholders, right? Radios will be rounded, so you don't need any placeholders. So, but it will have a value attribute. So let me give cricket, and here let us duplicate this. Okay, sports. All this label is for sports only, right? So, but value will change here. So, what is the value? Kabaddi, volleyball. Okay. So now if you go and check in the browser, label I can view, enter sport. So if you see here, I don't know, user doesn't know what is this input is particularly given for. But when he select any one of the input radio button, when he submit, okay, we didn't give it. So he'll get a value here. If you see what is the value he got here, kabaddi, because that is a value that we have assigned here. So to avoid this confusion, what we should give? We should have definitely have to give the value to my radio button, right? Then only we should know whether the given data is for which particular value that one stands for. So kabaddi, okay. So now if I reload, see now we have the particular option. So now user will able to understand clearly. So what is the particular purpose that this each radio button is given for? Got it. So now if you see, but are you able to select multiple radio buttons here? No. Why? Because by default radio will support only one selection, not multiple selection. But let us go with one more input field now. So for hobbies. Checkbox. Let me make it a value will be riding, traveling, photography. Oh, madam, read my mind. Good. Okay, photography. So I like riding, traveling, and I like photography. Yeah. So now if you go back and if you reload here, hobbies. By default, I'm able to select multiple options or not. So that is the advantage default that my input types checkbox will give. So it's not only, it doesn't mean that I can't use the radio button for the multiple selection. I can even use the radio button for the multiple selection. Maybe you can see in many forms which have that feature. So for that, we just need to change few attributes. That's it. So it will allow us to deal with that multiple selection. Whether I can make the checkbox also for single selection, or else I can make the, for example, name sports. Let's try now. Now I am able to select multiple radio buttons or not. Got it? So what happened here? We are just changing the name here. Okay. So as I given the common name, it is making it individual selection before. But now when I make different names, it is allowing me to select each and every option. So let's try with the same thing with this one. 1 and 2. If I save it and get back, and if I reload, still it is working same. Why? Because by default, already my checkbox input type will allow me to select multiple options, but radio will not allow me to check with the multiple options. That is the reason why we use different names for each and every input, because here each and everything is a different input, right? So each and every input have a different value it is holding. Got it? So this is one of the two types of inputs that we'll have. So apart from this, is there any other major input types? So let me check. I don't want to waste my time. HTML5 input types. A reset. Yeah, that is all common things. Okay. What I'll just make it a new values reset. So what is this reset will do? Generally in your forms, what reset will do? When I given some name, some data, and if I want to make the data to be erased, what happens? Automatically it will reset the form. That's what my type reset will do. Okay. So remaining all you can check already. Button you can check, color you can. So let me give input type color. So let me give okay. So what it is giving? It's a color picker generally. Got it. So based on the pick, I can by using other attributes, I can get that particular color code also. Okay. So color, date, time, local date also will get. Type of date. I can give date, time, local. Also I can use search or submit. These all are common. So what else we have? URL. Let me give. So if you see, so what it is telling, it is asking for a URL because I give input type as the URL here. So if you see, this is the date time along with the, it is just about date calendar. But here, along with the date, it is also having with the time. Okay. So like this, I have multiple input fields that I can use for any selection. So whatever you are seeing in daily forms like date, maybe age, calculate, everything that you will get by using your input types. Got it? So here, apart from, there are few other HTML5 validations also that we have. For example, just imagine I want to avoid the user not to give any more than 10 characters or 5 characters. So what I can use? So I can tell that maximum of max length is equal to how much? 10 characters, right? So let me reload. And let me remove that required for time being for checking purpose, how it will work. Okay. So now if you go and check here, so it is getting submitted. But when I'm trying to type more than 10 characters, what happening? Even though I'm typing, it's not allowing me to type, right? But when the user submits without anything, it will take submission. So how I can avoid it? When I was able to give a max length, I will be even able to give the min length also, right? Minimum length. So what I'll do, minimum length I'll give as 5 characters. So now if you go to the browser and if you reload, so the user was able to submit when I don't have any data. But when I type 3 characters, when I try to submit, what happening? Please lengthen this text to 5 characters or more. You are currently using 3 characters. So when I give 5 or 6, now my form is getting submitted. So this is one type of like HTML5 default validations that we can use. Got it? So there is one more field that you most of the times every day maximum you'll see, input number field, like you will be giving the telephone number. So many people think that both input type, that type of inputs can be created by input type of number, but it's not true. So if you see, if you give input type as number, you'll get this type of input type with the up and down arrows. And if you see here, it will not accept only numerics, but it will accept one character E. Why? Because E is a mathematical character, it's not an alphabet. Okay. So it will accept it. So, but if I want to make any number accessible, only numbers, that is where I'll get the type as tell. Okay. By default, tell will work as a tell like a text only, input type text, but which makes it more powerful. As I said, one is HTML5 validation, and second one is the client side validation and server side validation. So in the client side validation, to do the validation without attributes, I got one more function from JavaScript, one more concept that is called as regex patterns, we call them as. So what is this regex patterns is nothing but, so whatever you written now, like you made that required and you made that input field, it should have minimum this letters and maximum that many letters. And you use the type to mention its alphabet or numeric. So these whole things, all the things can be handled by a single attribute that is nothing but pattern. Pattern is attribute. It runs on the concept of regex. So if you go and check regex pattern in HTML5 for alphanumeric. Okay. So if you see here, there is a pattern they have given. Okay, let's decode this pattern. So what each thing is doing here. Okay. So it is regex pattern is one of the advanced concept. You no need to worry about to learn it because you will get the regex patterns, unlimited patterns on the online. Okay. You don't need to break your brain. But if you want to write your own patterns, it's very simple concept. ABC, like a small a, what it mentions, numbers, it's very easy to read the regex basics. So if you know that basics, you can write your own patterns. You don't need to depend on some other persons. Okay. By using patterns, you can write in different conditions, like you can make third number bigger, the third alphabet like uppercase or fifth alphabet small, any condition you can write by using this regex. So now if you see, there is a, let us give explanation. They given this string contains all the alphabets from A to Z. This small a to z indicates small alphabets. Capital A to Z indicates upper cases. And the numeric from this 0 to 9 number indicates numerics from 0 to 9. Therefore, this is the alphanumeric string. For example, where they given, so if you see, they given regex like this. Okay. So here A represents the starting of the string where they given A. Okay. So question mark is equal to A to Z. Okay. This key letter, what it is representing? It representing alphabets from A to Z, uppercase or lowercase. And then here given question mark 0 to 9. So it is mentioning, it represents numerics. Then if you go with here A to Z 09 represent whether everything is either alphabet or DZ. So everything can be number or everything can be alphabets. That's the condition they given. So plus represents one or more item. If you see here, plus included, right? So it mentions that whether you want to apply only one numeric or one digit, but plus includes one or more. Okay, then dollar represent the ending of the string, the ending condition, it will be represented by the dollar. For example, let me, instead of this, I don't want for alphanumeric number. Let me check for mobile number, or else I given for achiever site already. I'll take it from there. Yeah. So I already given, if you see here, I have given the client side validations, along with that I given the server side validations also. So client side validations, there is a pattern that I given. So this pattern mentions, so for which one, this is the tell, right? So I should use the attribute called as pattern. So I mentioned like, so what this pattern, it was written by my own format. What this pattern will mention is, in India, what is the numbers will start with? +91. If it is a country code, if it is not a country code, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the starting characters. So that's what I mentioned. So the number should start with 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, and it should have a digits of 9 digits, 0 to 9. That's what I mentioned here. Okay. So now if you go and check here in this form, so I've given validation for each and every field here. So if you see, I can't even go back to the email. If you see, if I type something and if I submit, still it was showing error until unless I give proper mails. Okay. Now contact number. See, it will not allow you to go until unless. See, even if you like this also, still error it was causing. But I can, if you see, if I make it 89780, see, exact 10 characters. So 10 characters after it is automatically allowing me to submit. So that's what it should do our to our input. So let me reload. So this is the input field, right? So if I submit directly, it is getting submitted. But let us try with this. So what it is telling, please match the format required. From where this format is getting called. So this format is getting called from my regex pattern. So, okay. So this regex pattern also plays a very key role when you're dealing with authentication tokens. And if you go with advanced concepts of deployments, this regex plays a key role. But for the starting level, it is enough for you to just know what each character will do. Got it? Try to understand it. Very easy concept at the base level. But if you want to go advanced also, it will help you more with many more other JavaScript functionalities also. Great. So cool. So these are the some of the input types that we have, and that are the types of validations that we can do for the inputs. So far, anybody have any doubts like how client side and server side validations will done, or how these attributes are working? Or anybody have doubts with any input types? Button and submit. For example, just imagine I created type as button. Yeah. Now value, let me give as submit. Okay. What happening here? Is anything happening here? But here, submitting. Let me give value as reset. So is anything happening? But when I click on reset, so here the button is just an input type that I can use for anything. Whether for submission, like for button, I can give a on-click functionality, I can give a reset functionality, or I can give some any data filtration functionality, anything I can include. Okay. But this reset and submission types are particularly assigned for a reason. So reset will handle with the resetting of the form, and submit will handle with the submission of the form. Got it? But button is not like that. It is not have any individual characteristics. It can take any character that you give. So that is the purpose of a button. Got it? Is it clear? Any doubt in this? More. So I forgot to tell one thing. So however, action and method is important for any form, whether you have it or not, whether client side or static form or dynamic form, any form, there is one attribute that mandatory. That is nothing but name of that form. Contact form, for example, just imagine. So that form name is very mandatory. Why? Because, for example, just imagine I was given a task to you and told you to write like 100 lines of paragraph. Sorry. Uh, I told you to do what I can use. Let me take an example. Mm, Okay. So I told you like there are 5 rooms. I told you to get me a marker from the room. So if I tell you like that, so what happens? You have to search in each and every room for where the marker is particularly placed. Right. So due to this, what happens? Maybe I told you to get a blue marker, which is in the room number 2, but you went to the room number 5 and got my black marker. Got it. So same thing happens with the database also. For example, you are dealing with the contact form. Okay, in the database, each and every form data have one table. Like in the, for example, take MySQL as an example. If it is a contact form has 1 DB place stored. The data should store here only. In the registration form, there is a data place kept aside for the registration data. For the like inquiries data, there is a space separately allocated. So for each and every form data, there is a separate space allocated. Just imagine you are not mentioning what is the particular data that you're sending and you want to include into your database. Is it possible for you to include? No, right? So you can include by using other types of framework methods. But when you give a name, it will be easy for the both client side and the server side to understand by seeing that name. Okay, this data is particularly given for that particular database. Then I can do the server side validation again. So here name is helping me to do the client side validation. And again, that by using that name, my server side also will help take their own validation in their format. Got it? So that is the major advantage and the minimum why the name attribute is mandatory for a form. Got it? Is it clear? Anybody have any doubts? Clear? Just go through the input types one more time. Take 5 minutes time and go through. Then I'll take just 10 minutes to explain the layout types. Okay. Tomorrow we'll be discussing about layout types and the CSS. Just go through the form inputs one time. Don't use Insta. Check form tags or form input types. Okay. You can clearly visible on the glass, madam. Back side to there is a glass. You don't lie to me. Yeah. So online people, anybody have any doubts? All are there online? Guys, anybody have any doubts? Jyotirajan, Komala Nikhil, and who else? Who else is there? Varun Reddy, Manikanta. Is everyone clear with the topics that we discussed so far?
No, sir. Yes, sir.
So any doubts? I'm asking you people, online people, anybody have any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, cool. So now let's discuss about layout system. So generally when the HTML is first introduced in the HTML version 1 or 2, the people are used to design the web pages by using a concept called tables. So just imagine yourself, you already gone through the tables, how we can create. So if you want to create a layout by just using tables, is it easy or hard? So it will be very hard and it is not that much browser responsive also. So that's where that layout system got replaced one of the new concept called float then. Okay. So layout systems. So layout systems. So first one is the table layout. Okay. So then it got replaced with the which one? Float. Okay. So how table layout will work, we already seen. Same as whatever the tables we created. If you go in depth with the table, see whatever the concept that we discuss here, it's not just about the advanced level or scratch level. So it will just, we are just covering what is needed for the particular concept. But if you go in depth with the table, there are many attributes that you'll get for a table. Okay, try to check whenever a concept is covered, try to go in depth about that concept. You'll get hundreds of new features into that particular concept. Got it? Okay, don't ever think that that is the only concept that you're going to learn here. If you work practically, you will see more. When if I go to the work, I don't even use this basic level thing. I'll always use the advanced level of properties. Okay. But if I directly jump into that advanced level of properties, you can't even understand what is meant by table also. That's why we go with the scratch to medium level. So it is your responsibility to go in depth into each and every concept. So if there is a concept that is definitely needed to go from scratch to advanced, definitely I'll go through. For example, layout is very important. So we'll go from scratch to advanced. Okay. So that's what you need to take care from your side also. So tables, just by using the tables, the people are used to create a web pages. So due to this, it created many issues. Then they replaced it with the float. So float, what it will do, it will just make our element one directional. Whether it will take to the left or take to the right element and make the content to the, by using a clear concept, it will make the content place. But float is completely avoided from as soon as we got these new concepts of layouts called as flex and the grid. So the first one is the flex and fourth one is the grid. So these got introduced when my CSS3 got introduced. Okay. So as soon as this flex and grid came into the picture, my whole way of writing my application code is changed. So it will be completely different compared to here. It made very easy for the developers. Why? Because flex and grid, what is the major difference between these two is both are layout systems only. Both will give hundreds of privileges for dealing with the layout. But here flex is a one directional layout. That means whether I can deal vertically or horizontally when I created elements. But grid is a unidirectional layout system. That means whether I can deal with the vertically or I can deal horizontally at the same time. So that is the major difference between the flex and grid. So these are the four kinds of layout systems that we had so far. But among these, what is the major layout system that we'll be using now? Flex and the grid. So tables nowadays also we are using not for the layout system, just for creating a formatting data for using table content. But float is completely avoided and kept aside now because it's no use for now as we have many other properties also. Properties only came into picture which will give us the output of a float. Got it? But still if you want to use, you can just go through check float once. It's just a basic concept. Okay, no need any rocket science to learn. Okay, it's just a basic concept that you can learn. Okay, but what is your today's task is, okay, so what is the day today? 7, right? 7 slash. So create registration form, comma, contact form, comma, login form, and any other two types of forms with complete validation. Okay. I want it to be complete validation, like min length, max length, patterns, regex patterns, like username should have only, okay, I'll give that conditions also. Complete validations. So in this, what is the conditions need to be? Username should be one uppercase, one lowercase, minimum length of 8, max length of 15. Okay, so this is what I need, and it should include both uppercase and lowercase, and also it should include one symbol. Understood the conditions? So username should have a one uppercase and lowercase, and it should have one minimum of 8 characters and maximum of 15 characters, and it should contain both uppercase and lowercase letters, and also one symbol is mandatory and not more than 3 symbols. Okay, I don't want input field data username should be more than 3 symbols. Only one symbol is allowed. Got it? So next, coming to the password. Yeah, applies the same rules. Minimum 8, maximum 8, both uppercase, lowercase. Yeah. Password. So email, you already know how it will work, right? Email should have whole thing. So email should have like, it should have a minimum of 4 characters at the starting, and after that, @ symbol is mandatory. So let me give that also. Email. Starts minimum 4 characters. Then @ is mandatory, and only one @ symbol is accepted. Okay, accepted, comma. Then after @ minimum 2 characters is required, and then dot is mandatory command. After dot, minimum 2 characters are required. Got it? So these are the validations that you need to check. So minimum 4 characters should be there at the starting of the email, and after that, @ symbol is mandatory, and after that, after @ minimum 2 characters. You can give 4 or 10, it's your choice, but minimum is 2, and after that characters, dot is mandatory. So after that dot also, minimum 2 characters, and it shouldn't be after dot, it should be minimum 2 characters and max of 3 characters. Why? Because .com, .in, .in. Okay, it will be not other than that this. So that's why you need to use this validation. Okay, and next one. So this is one task. So it should be how many forms? Totally 3 forms it should be. Sorry, 5 forms. 3 forms will be contact, registration, and login form. So in the 4th and 5th form, you can use create a form with all the input types. Okay, here registration, these are just with basic fields, but I want this form with all the input fields. It should have all the whatever the input types you have 22. I need all the input types with proper validations. Got it? Clear? That's what about your today's task. Is the online people clear with the task? Titesh, Varun,
Awesome.
everyone, Komala, everyone clear? Okay, just try to take this, note it down. Okay, so this is your today's task. Got it? So if anybody have any doubts, feel free to ask now, or else we can wind up this session. Anybody have any doubts? Cool. Pardon? Uppercase, one lowercase. Minimum of 8 characters, maximum of 15 characters. Both uppercase and lowercase should be there in the username, and one symbol. Symbol I'll give. Symbol and not more than 3 symbols in the username. Okay. Clear? Okay then. Thank you guys. Have a nice day. Bye.